Welcome to this explainer. We live in a seriously noisy age, don't we? Between the constant notifications, the endless scrolling feeds, and just the sheer volume of our daily interactions, it feels like everybody is desperately trying to make their voice heard. But in this frantic rush to broadcast our own thoughts, we've kind of stumbled into a modern trap. We are talking way more than ever, yet we somehow seem to be understanding each other a whole lot less. So today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating concept known as the talking paradox and discover why, when it comes to genuine communication, less is actually more. To really wrap our heads around this paradox, we have to start by asking a centuries-old and frankly somewhat unusual question. Take a quick second and think about your own face. Why exactly were we built with 2 ears but only 1 mouth? I mean, it's a pretty curious detail of human engineering, right? Long before modern psychologists started studying how we interact, ancient thinkers zeroed in on this physical asymmetry. They saw it as a massive biological hint, believing that nature was trying to tell us something incredibly specific about how we are fundamentally wired to connect with the world.
And that biological hint? Well, it all boils down to this absolutely massive, undeniable 2-to-1 ratio. It is literally the foundation of our anatomical design. The core idea here is wonderfully simple, even though, let's be honest, it is incredibly difficult to actually practice. We should be listening twice as much as we speak. We are quite literally hardwired to take in double the information that we put out. So how on earth did this ancient observation about our physiology turn into a guiding principle for better living?
Let's find out in Act 1, The Context, where we'll look at ancient wisdom and a fascinating family legacy. Our journey actually kicks off over 2 millennia ago with this great piece of wisdom from Zeno of Citium, who was the founder of Stoicism. Now, the story goes that Zeno was dealing with this really talkative young man who was essentially just babbling, monologuing without actually saying anything of value. Zeno interrupted him with a sharp reality check. He pointed out that nature gave us 2 ears and 1 tongue specifically so that our listening might double our talking. It wasn't just a witty comeback to shut the guy up. It was actually a core tenet of how to live a rational, grounded life. Now, what's kind of hilarious is how history plays the ultimate game of telephone with great quotes like this. If you do a quick search online today, you will constantly see this exact quote attributed to Epictetus, or sometimes even Socrates. But that's actually a 19th century translation error. While the great Stoic Epictetus absolutely agreed with the sentiment, he frequently told his students to favor silence over idle chatter. It was Zeno who first put this specific anatomical metaphor into the historical record. And this perfectly illustrates the ancient concept of temperance, or sophrosine in Greek. In Stoic ethics, temperance is one of the 4 primary virtues, and it is all about self-mastery. The Stoics recognized early on that the urge to constantly speak, to just fill every single silence with your own voice, is actually a failure of self-control. By putting the emphasis on listening, they taught that holding your tongue is this deeply disciplined act of moderation. You're reserving your speech strictly for when it adds true value to the room. Hey, this isn't just some dusty philosophy found in old textbooks. It is a living, generational wisdom. In the newsletter that actually inspired our explainer today, the author, who goes by the name Papa, shares how this exact wisdom was passed down to him. It didn't come from a Greek philosopher, but rather from his father, a tough World War II master sergeant nicknamed Papa Q-Bear. So, from Zeno in ancient Athens to a master sergeant in the 20th century, this mandate to control your voice and prioritize listening has survived for one simple reason. It fundamentally works. Okay, moving right along to Act 2, the tension. We are going to explore the mental bottleneck. Why is listening so hard? Well, it all comes down to a strict limits of human working memory. Our brains are, without a doubt, incredibly powerful, but our working memory has a very hard limit on its capacity. We physically cannot process everything at once. When someone else is talking to you and you are immediately trying to formulate your own brilliant reply in your head, you create a massive mental bottleneck. You just can't adequately process their complex information while your brain is simultaneously trying to generate your own output. So the crucial takeaway here is this direct comparison between active talking and active listening. Think about it. When you are constantly talking, you are merely recycling your old ideas. You aren't learning anything new at all. And ironically, the act of speaking actually dampens your brain's physical ability to process outside sounds. But active listening? That gathers completely new input. It gives you a massive information advantage. When you prioritize full comprehension over firing back a quick response, you instantly become the most informed person in the room. Which brings us right to Act 3, the connection. Let's talk about the metaphorical bridge and the 2-second pause. The absolute most tactical way to actually do this involves a simple timeline trick, the deliberate 2-second pause. When you hear new input at second 0, your total natural instinct is to jump right in. But if you force yourself to insert a mandatory 2-second pause, something pretty magical happens. First, it cools down those knee-jerk emotional reactions. Second, it clears that mental bottleneck we just talked about, freeing up your brain power to actually process the complex information you just heard before you even begin to formulate your reply. By utilizing that simple pause, you naturally begin to treat your speech as a highly limited resource. Think about basic economics. Scarcity creates value. When you talk endlessly, your words become cheap and easy to ignore. But when you start treating your words as a scarce, valuable resource, choosing to speak only after you have truly listened and processed, well, the few things you do choose to say are going to carry significantly more weight and authority. And this translates so powerfully into our personal relationships. Papa shares a really vivid metaphor about interacting with his spouse, Colonel Debs. Look, relationships can often feel like a rising tide of complexity, right? Emotions and words just swirling uncontrollably. But by deliberately holding your tongue, controlling your voice, and truly listening to the other person, you become a calm anchor in that rising tide. You end up creating a safe, stable space that fosters actual connection, rather than just two monologues colliding in midair.
All right, let's bring it all together in the synthesis, a lifelong mission. Keep these 4 key rules in your back pocket during your very next conversation. Number 1, embrace your anatomy. That 2-to-1 ratio of ears to mouth is definitely not an accident. Number 2, treat your words as a limited resource to instantly increase their value. Number 3, strictly deploy that 2-second pause to stop knee-jerk reactions and clear your mental bottleneck. And finally, number 4, listen to actually understand and gain an information advantage, not just to wait for your turn to reply.
We're going to leave you with this final, provocative thought from Papa's take. He admits that despite knowing this rule inside and out, he still struggles with it. For every step forward, he takes a half step back. Because mastering this ratio is difficult, imperfect work, but it is a profoundly worthwhile, lifelong mission. So the next time you find yourself in a heated discussion, ask yourself, are you just feeding the noise, or are you actually using your 2 ears to finally understand?